Let's go. Welcome to another live interview on Milton Keynes beating coronavirus, and we're going to chat with a man that has already invented Care, Share and Protect with his radio station, Seklo Sounds 105.5. Join me for a fascinating chat with Mike Johnson. Mike, good to see you. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, John. It's good to connect after quite a while, but doing very well. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So with what we've got at the moment, are you sat in Milton Keynes radio station in Seklo 105.5?
No, Seklo 105.5 has not been broadcasting live in terms of studio guests and presenters coming into the studio since the lockdown, but I'm talking to you from my home studio. But we're still broadcasting. We're repeating some programs, or we're using new technologies to connect with our guests to record interviews and then broadcast them afterwards.
Yeah. Now, rumor says that you actually had an issue. Just bear with me a second. I'm just making sure that we have the right mix on our video. But you had an issue yourself with coronavirus.
Yes, I'm still waiting. I need to have that test to confirm whether I had it. But I didn't have the temperature. I had the chest infection. Well, I had a chest infection, the coughing. I lost my sense of taste completely. And for about a week or so, my body was just done, aches and pains and so on. So, but I'd had similar symptoms before. I just said to my doctor, I think I've got a chest infection, because I was pretty exhausted. And when I get that way, my immune system is shattered and I pick up whatever is going. So they gave me a course of antibiotics and some painkillers. And that's what I've been living off, basically. And I'm now, I would say back to about 90%, not complete, but back to 90%. So doing well. I don't feel sick. During that time, I felt sick for a couple of weeks. I don't feel that way now, even though there's some residual coughing. So I want them to develop that antibody test so that I can detect whether I had it or not.
Now, there's obviously been a lot in the press about the coronavirus heavily impacting the Barmy community. What are your thoughts in terms of caring, sharing, protecting Milton Keynes Barmy community and the wider Barmy community?
Yes, and so let me just explain perhaps for your viewers. Barmy, or BAME, is the Black Asian minority ethnic community. And it seems that we are predisposed to greater amounts of the coronavirus, in the sense that we have some underlying conditions within this people group. Hypertension, there is diabetes, there's obesity, and other cardiovascular diseases, mainly through lifestyle and perhaps economic circumstances. And so the virus seems to like us very much, and also a lot of our people do work in the NHS, and although the NHS population 1.3, 1.5 million, around 20% of the NHS workforce are from the BME population, but the deaths are disproportionate. You think, I think around some 55, 56% or more of those who have died, NHS workers have died, are from the BME community. So you can see what's going on. And I guess your amount of exposure that you have to the virus will obviously increase your risk of catching it.
And what do you think media can do to try to help? Because you've touched on some things which are lifestyle related and could, because I think this virus is going to be around for a long time, but they could, within a relatively short period of time, make a difference. What role does media have, local media I should say, to support improving people's chances?
Well, I think the fact that it has been proven now that this particular people group have adverse risks when it comes to the coronavirus. It's a matter of educating people in that people group, to say, look, these are the underlying conditions that you have. what can you do about reversing or decreasing your chance of catching the virus? And it's going to mean some lifestyle changes in the things that we eat and our lack of activity maybe. So that's where I think media can come in and give the facts clearly. We've started, I also work on another radio station, a Christian radio station. And, you know, when you look at the fact that the death rate is so high and we're the second in the world and so on, that can get a little bit despondent, you know. So we started to say, right, okay, so many people have been confirmed with the virus, so many people have died, but what about those who've recovered? And we started to look into that and say, look, the recovery rate or the survival rate is 80% rather than just focusing on the amount of deaths. I think keep things in balance, because if you're hearing negative news all the time, that can become infectious. You know, you begin to think and talk that way. So I think local media has a duty of care to inform the public as much as they can. And we at Secular 105.5 have made the decision that, you know, during this pandemic, we're going to give as much public health information, carrying the adverts that the government put out and so on, and just talk to experts in mental health on what we can do to keep ourselves healthy during this lockdown period.
And when you look at what you're doing, you've obviously got another side to your media involvement on the spiritual side. What comfort can that bring, and what positive role does that play? Because we backed all of the religions in Milton Keynes. We've been very impressed by some of the Muslim brothers and the work they're doing in supporting the local food distribution. And, you know, I think there's a very positive role for religion. Religion often gets knocked, but, you know, it seems to be actually part of the solution from what I can see.
For us, well, I recently started a series on the other station called Stories from the Front Line, because a lot of our members are working on the front line. So I wanted to hear their experience of, you know, having to go to work and then come home. What are their routines? What do they have to do before they get in the door and so on? And I said, look, what is it that keeps you going when you're rushing into danger? And some of your colleagues are wanting not to go to work. And faith plays a big part. They without equivocation, they're saying to me, compassion. My faith compels me to do this. I can't just leave somebody. And particularly as you've heard that, you know, when someone is close to dying, their relatives can't be there with them. And so a lot of the people I've interviewed have said, look, you know, we will stand by their side or sit by this, you know, and so on. Just give them as much comfort as possible. And they're putting their lives at risk even more than you and I, because they're diving in every single day, may not have the complete set of PPE, but, you know, compassion drives them on. So faith plays a big part. People who have recovered from the COVID, and I'm talking who are on ventilators and have recovered, have expressed how their faith in God or the family praying for them whilst they were under, you know, has been instrumental in them making that recovery.
It's interesting. I mean, I think over the years, changed my views on the spiritual world. But I did a very interesting meeting with a guy called Rupert Sheldrake, who's a bit of a maverick scientist. Some of his talks get millions of views on the TED Talks and YouTube. One of the things that he backed was the power of prayer, and the sort of studies that gets him into trouble. He for example, you know, people's ability to have a second sense. This is aside from prayer, but the ability for people to know when they're being looked at and watched. And he said, on the one hand, we were able to physically measure that and detect that in laboratory studies. Also, the CIA and the Metropolitan Police manuals are saying if you're following somebody, never look at them from behind, because they'll know that you're looking at them. And another set of studies he's done is about prayer and recovery rates. And again, you know, railing against, because there isn't an easy answer to prove the link, but the recovery rates were percentages, you know, statistically only answerable because there was a causal relationship by prayer actually having helped. So maybe you're onto something there in terms of the power of that within coronavirus.
Mm-mm. I mean, this thing has caused, like in the faith community, headaches just as in the commercial
Mm.
community. You're in a church of 300, 400 people every week. Part of uh, the weekly gathering is the fellowship, the greeting one another, the hugs, and so on
Mm.
and so forth. All that has gone. We're now doing church on Zoom. It's just not the same,
Yeah.
because people's mics are muted. You can't connect, so you're basically watching, and so
Mm.
that's a big impact. And even when the lockdown is eased and social distancing has to be practiced, that means the churches are going to be in upheaval because do you have 4 or 5 services per day to cope with that? Well, how do you do this thing? So there's a challenge for everybody, and it's just as bad for us in the faith community how we deal with this. But I think even though we might be separated, the fact that we are connected in some way electronically and praying together and praying for one another, that does play a very big part in our faith community.
Okay, so let's talk about something else that I think is positive, which is how we end the lockdown. Now, I think the questions of how we do that across the community are very complex. I don't want to go there. But
Mm-hmm.
just as an operation, SECLO 105.5, what are your immediate thoughts on how you get back to a new normal?
Well, one of the problems we've had, John, from the very beginning, we've never really had a permanent home, permanent set of studios. And this has actually helped us to sharpen our focus and thinking. And so, Zoom is here. There are things like IP, DTL, Internet Protocol down the line. We could actually be connected to the studio and each other from our own homes. So we're looking more into that to make us lighter
Mm.
and more agile. So, we don't need to have presenters in the studio. They can see all the systems that they would see in the studio from their home. They speak in real time. They can connect with their guests in real time. So we think we could still practice social distancing and even save ourselves cost of building studios when technology is there to help us. So we're looking into that a lot more
Mm.
and recording interviews so that we can be playing relevant and up-to-date information. So that's how we're looking into things. So we're saying to anybody who's still interested in joining us as a volunteer, have you got these kinds of equipment? A USB microphone is pretty much all they need,
Mm.
and they're good to go. We can set people up, we can train them, and they can be on air in a relatively short space of time. So we've had to look at how we deliver our current content, and so we can connect with local charities and groups, record the interviews, and then play those out.
Let's talk about finally the charities, because
Mm.
I'm doing a lot of work where we try and involve the what's going on and get the stories from the frontline charities, and I think we've discovered so many heroes. The issue that I think locally in Milton Keynes really matters is that the funding of charities is focused very heavily on the NHS, but we know that the support organisations around, and let's take Will and Hospice as an example, are
Hmm.
only getting about 50% of the funds. So what role do you think you can play, and maybe we can help in that, but to not necessarily stop the charity push for the NHS, but get the generosity spread more evenly
Mm.
across.
Mm.
I think there's nearly 100 charities in Milton Keynes.
Wow. Well, when we made our application to Ofcom in the very beginning, John, part of our community of interest, as we call them, is the local voluntary sector, in the sense that we wanted to highlight the work that they're doing. And the concept was, and still is, we would invite any local organization, even if they're not a formal charity, but they're doing something for the benefit of the community, to come on the radio, have a live interview, half an hour or so, and just, I say to them, it's your platform. You actually tell me what do you want to get across. I'll just ask them the right questions to make them get across those points. And so, we've had varying charities come on there and tell us what they need. They can use it to promote the work that they're doing. They can use it to recruit for volunteers or people who want to support them for funding. So we give them this platform on a weekly basis, and also some of the local parish councils to come on and just talk about what you're doing for your community. And so that's how we've decided to play our part. We give them that free airtime to promote their services, and then we give them that interview that they can then use it for their own promotional purposes as well. So I think what you're doing there in terms of caring, sharing, and protecting Milton Keynes, and what we're doing at Secular 105.5 can easily be joined together and as a collaborative project using both medias, video and radio.
I'd be very excited to do that, and we'll talk more about that. Obviously, it's a common mission, and I think our mission is to try and unite the very best of Milton Keynes, and you guys are stars and deserve a full recovery. And if we can do a little bit to help, then we'll be more than happy. Mike, final words in terms of people contacting and supporting Secular 105.5. What help do you guys need right now?
We're always looking for new volunteers who want to come and be part of the team in terms of presenting a program. And we're saying to people, you don't need to have done radio before. We will train you. So long as you can have some confidence and hold a good conversation, that's very important. If it's music you want to play, we'd love to hear what genre of music that you like. If you have gifts in web development, those are always useful for us as well. So really, we like to give opportunities, John. And even though we might not have a particular opening right now, somebody comes to us and say, can I do this? we will find a way for you to do what you like to do. So I say to people, just give us a try, and we will be able to find a way for you to work with us. There's a number of ways. I mean, right now, as I say, we're looking for new content. So we need new people to come on board and join the team.
Brilliant. Mike, it's been a total pleasure. It's been a long time since we were able to meet. I would love to give you a hug as soon as it's safe. And,
Indeed.
We'll have more chats. But anybody watching this, then you can join us anytime you want during the next few weeks. We'll try and keep mkchannel40.com and the Facebook group going for as long as we can. But it's dead easy. All you need to do is message me on Facebook. So from myself and Mike Johnson, I'll just put him on camera now. Mike, do you want to say goodbye?
Yes, indeed. Goodbye. And really want to encourage you in this group and the Milton Keynes Beating Coronavirus group. Really appreciate the work that you're doing. And I think the only way we're going to beat this thing is by collaborating and working together. So it's tremendous to know and to hear what's going on in your group.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mike. And on that note, we'll say goodbye. Bye for now.
Thanks so much indeed. Bye-bye.